I will back you up on that after your story and seeing the law enforcement guys I saw. Of all the guys that should have been, pretty calm and realize what they were doing. And I just did when we got to that tugboat, and I saw that guy roughing up that long-haired guy in the galley going, these guys, they're looking bloodthirsty to me, buddy.
That's exactly
these guys are not responding normally, and I've got to get out of here because I could be next.
The Joshua Moroles podcast.
All right, guys, what's going on? We have a new episode here with Captain Steve. Of course, Robert's here. But before we go into the podcast, I just want to remind you all to make sure you subscribe, hit that little bell so you're getting notified every single time we upload a video. We're uploading at least twice a week now. So
yeah, it's become a habit.
Yeah, before we didn't know like where this was going to go.
Yep.
But it just keeps going.
It just keeps going.
And interestingly enough, Captain Steve reached out to us on Facebook, and he called me, or actually, we called each other somehow. And he was in Puerto Vallarta, sipping on some tequila, playing golf.
Well, yes, part of the time.
Part of the time.
I was sitting by the pool smoking a cigar and looking at beautiful scenery when I first read, their stuff on Facebook.
So tell us what you thought when you first heard that. Take us back to where you were when you first heard the very first episode of this.
Well, it's always been interesting to me because, of course, I was not really involved in it, but I was drawn into it just by curiosity because I'm a pretty curious person, and I don't like things going by me that I can witness and not witness them. It's just ridiculous not to get involved, But it was all circumstantial. There was nothing that I did on purpose. And just listening to Robert speak about the events it just flooded back to me a lot of things that I was involved in that night. And the way he tells stories, and your friend was right. You're making a big mistake doing whatever you're doing. You should get involved in storytelling because you're very good at it.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
It really affected me, just not so much the event, but the way you spoke of it. It was really interesting. You drew me in. You pulled me into this. It's all your fault. If I say something that gets me in trouble, it's your fault.
Oh,
hey, Robert,
sounding like my wife.
Did you ever feel, or did you ever think that we would have an actual captain that was on the water that night?
I never even expected to hear another perspective of that night. I never really even, when we started, I just wanted to vent. Yeah. I wanted to get it out. The amount of people like yourself that have come out and said, "Hey, I have my version of that night," has been overwhelming. So no, I didn't expect it to get to this. And every time I hear somebody else tell me their version of the incidents that took place that night from their perspective, it's like seeing a full painting of what happened that night. Because remember, I spent the majority of my time on the north side of the bridge after the accident happened. I'm assuming you were on the south side.
That's where I first got involved. That it was on the north side.
Oh, on the north side. Okay.
Yeah, and it was after you weren't out there, and of course, there was nobody else. You've got to understand there was so little. I don't know, there were so few people that were involved in it on the water that weren't in law enforcement or Coast Guard.
That's correct.
And the guys on the tug themselves. That was all there was. And no one else was out there. I mean, it was you and me.
Yeah.
Basically, your gang and myself.
We were alone for a long, long time. By the time we went back and dropped off bodies, and people who, I'm sorry, bodies, but people who were with us, the bodies that were with us, more boats were coming in, and some of them were being commandeered by Texas troopers and different officials. So at one point, you couldn't really tell what was an authoritative boat and what was just, somebody who got on their boat to go out there to go try to help.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you, there weren't any.
There weren't any.
There were no authorities in boats out there except the Coast Guard.
Except the Coast Guard.
As far as I saw. And I was in there a very short period of time before I evacuated. I saw things going on that went, oh, this is way no good.
So when we chatted on the phone, you told me that was accounts, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, wow.
Exactamente.
So let's go back to that night. Tell us what happened, what you saw, what you heard. How did you get on the water?
What, do you want me to go through a run through, like all the way through
Everything.
what I ran into, or do you want to stop me every once in a while and ask a question?
Yeah, let's just have the conversation to see where it goes.
Yeah, okay. Well, I can't explain why or why not I was up at 2 o'clock in the morning, except I had to pee, So I had a house, or actually a condo, on the main North Channel in Port Isabel. And I like to go out at night every once in a while and fly fish under the lights. It was just, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, and go down there and check on the fish. There were, I'd go down, fly a rod and catch a couple. It was very normal for me. So I woke up, I had to pee, go down to the dock there, and I did my thing, and I'm looking at the lights down there and going, yeah, that's pretty good, and I was on the second floor and had a flat dock above my boat and a boat lift. So I walked back up to the top of the dock, and I'm looking around and checking the fish out, and all of a sudden I hear a noise that you don't hear. I've never heard before, and never since. It was a very loud, horrible crashing sound, and it continued for a very long period of time. In perspective, may have lasted half a minute,
Wow.
maybe a minute. It was a long, sustained, crashing, horrible sound. I'm going, wow, okay, that doesn't happen every day. What the heck was that? Back to being inquisitive, So I walked out the front, and I fast walked down to Highway 100 there, which is pretty close, but it's a good walk. And I'm fast walking down there just to see, if it was something in town. And I start seeing every type of vehicle that you've never seen with flashing lights on it and siren, Volkswagens, pickup trucks, station wagons, minivans, ripping down Highway 100 towards the bridge. I'm going, oh, okay, something's up.
Something's
man.
up, yeah.
Back to being inquisitive again. I'm going, oh man, I got to go get in the truck, see what's going on. So I ran, which I wasn't running much then, but I ran all the way back and got in my truck, woke up the girlfriend and went, okay, we're going for a ride. And she's like, okay, she's in. So I get in the boat, drop in the water, and immediately run out through the channel, come around through old Purdy's Pier there. And the thing that I have to tell everyone is it was so dark. Very, very dark.
Very eerily dark.
Very dark that night. There was no light anywhere. And of course, the wind, and I'm going to impress upon this many times about how hard the wind was blowing and how strong the current was and how rough the bay was. So I come around Purdy's Pier, and now I'm getting into the waves.
The chop.
Yeah, it's rough, and I can't see anything. And of course, I couldn't see the causeway.
Mm-mm.
There was no lights on the causeway, and there hadn't been lights on the causeway,
On the causeway. That's
for
right.
weeks.
Wow.
Okay, there's been a lot of social interaction with people going on about, well, why we not have lights on the bridge? You can't see anything when you're driving.
That's right.
And I remember looking, and there was no nav lights.
Nope. There
On the
wasn't even
causeway.
when I was in the water.
There was no nav lights there. And, I was going, wow, that's real weird. And I noticed, I guess it was Dale Stockton's head boat, his charter fishing boat, the big one, was there by Purdy's Pier anchored up. And I'm going, well, okay, that's different. And I get a little closer, back then it was really dark, and it's just loaded with people, and they're in dark gear. And I kind of, they're anchored up with the bow pointing towards the causeway and the current, and I snuck up on them. They weren't expecting anybody out there and I'd forgotten about what you said. They had the boat ramps closed.
They had the boat ramps closed.
And of course, I wasn't affected by that.
Yep.
So I pull up about 6 feet away from them. Hey, what's going on, guys? Hey, what's up? Well, every gun in the United States was instantly pointed at me.
Yeah.
And every flashlight that's ever been made. And they're on me. And there's yelling and screaming everybody's telling me to do something different.
Different. That's right. That's exactly the way it was.
Because I figured later that there was probably one of every law enforcement personnel on the planet on that boat.
Jeez.
And all wanted seniority.
Representing every group, Well, I later come to realize that not one of them knew anything about the water. They had no idea what they were doing out there.
There's different maritime law versus land law, and we always talk about that.
It's not the law thing. It's just the aspect of knowing what to do in the water. I mean, they're all on this boat, and I mean, they are armed like you can imagine. They're flak jackets, automatic weapons, and they're all pointing at me, and I'm sitting there going, I believe I'm going to be killed tonight.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was a rough thing to see.
It was just really strange. And one guy goes, get over here. I'm going, hey, look, take it easy, guys. I'm trying to defuse the situation. Going, look, y'all need to calm down. You know what's up? I'm here to help, I mean, just trying to, I wasn't really, but, I'm just here to help, trying to calm them down. I'm okay, I'm not
a threat, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not a threat. And they're going, there's been a terrorist attack, and the causeway's down. I'm going, well, if there's a terrorist attack, where is it? I don't see anything. I still hadn't seen the bridge broken. So these guys, they're going to pull up over here. Well, the current's ripping through there, and nobody threw me a line or anything. It was fortunate for them I can drive a boat, and I was able to hold, up next to them. Well, here comes, these guys diving off this boat onto me. I mean, there's no ladder.
Yeah.
They're jumping down onto my boat. Well, two of them hit at the same time and almost capsized the boat. I mean, I'm up against these guys with the current pushing me. Well, wow, hey, man, you guys need to settle down. And I still don't remember if there was 3 or 4 of them got on my boat. But they were all, you could tell, from a different agency.
Mm-hmm.
And they may have worked that out right there on the spot, That's all I can figure about who they were going to put on the boat. And I finally got them on the boat. Man, y'all got to move around this little boat, man. It's rough out here. And that, the swells were coming through, and I was going, okay, well, what's the deal here? Take us to that tugboat. Well, I hadn't looked for the tugboat yet either. And I finally looked over there, and I could see its lights because he's behind, the causeway. I'm going, okay, I'll take y'all over there. This guy goes, hurry up, let's go. I'm going, hey, look, it's rough out here, man. We got to take this easy, this is, and as I approach the causeway, I see that pickup truck stuck in that top landing part, that it's a two-part. You got footings, and then you've got a landing area, and then you've got pillars coming up off that footing above the water, probably 6 foot above the water.
That is correct.
It's high.
Yeah, it's high.
You saying
you have to crawl
you couldn't
up.
get to it,
You needed help.
Yeah, which was, and then I saw taillights in the water. And I'm going, oh, wow. And I look up, and as I skylighted it, I could see that broken area where the causeway was. Well, here we go, and I go under, and later I found out that piece that I went under fell down in the dark about 5 in the morning. That piece just fell on its own. Well, lucky strike number 1, as it turns out. And as I approached the tugs and the barges were unloaded, and I also think that was part of their problem that night, these 2 unloaded barges. And as I approached them, you're getting into the lee of all that current and wind, and it was kind of eerie because it calmed down, and well, I'm used to that, I know how that stuff works. So I'm cruising along behind the barges, and the current is just, pouring underneath those things and eddying. And I get up closer to the tugboat. The guys are going, get me over that tugboat, get me over that tugboat. And these guys were demanding. They were crazy.
Yeah.
They were crazed. They wanted to shoot somebody or arrest somebody or do something, because that's what they were there for. So I pull up next to the tug. Well, there's no line to hold me, so I'm in gear and I'm trying to maneuver there. Well, once again, they almost capsized me.
So I'll rush over to the side.
Yeah, they all get on that one side and go, hey, stop! What are you guys doing, man? Settle down, And I get up against. Of course, the current underneath the tug is even worse than the barges because the current's coming underneath that thing. Tugboats are like icebergs. Most of it's underwater. And I'm thinking to myself, this guy's aground, possibly aground. And it's swirling, and I finally get them up there, and I'm pulled up to what I remember is the galley. And there's this long-haired guy in there either making a cup of coffee or eating something. I'm just thinking, what
are you doing?
I guess he's pretty calm, But one of these law enforcement guys gets on that tote and runs in there and just gets this guy. He's on the ground, and he's cuffing him, and the other guys they're out of sight. They're gone, and I'm figuring, well, they're probably doing the same
thing to somebody else.
To the rest of the crew.
That's right.
And this is going through my mind, and many things, went through my mind what during this period. I'm going, well, what in the world are these guys, cuffing and roughing up these people? They need to be in command of their vessel.
Yeah.
I mean, what?
Yeah, they put the whole crew on handcuffs.
If they're terrorists, why is this guy making a cup of coffee or something to eat here? There's no terror here, And I just going, wow, this is no good. This is absolutely no good. And I told the one that was in the galley there is going, hey, look, guys, I'm gonna get out of here, And he's going, no, this guy gets commanding and demanding. Then he's going, no, you're going to wait right there. You're going to take us back over to that boat, over to land. I was going, well, most of my life somebody tells me what to do. I'm going to do the opposite just to show them, don't tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So I'm going, well, no, man, I'm out of here. And I remember going, well, I can't go back that way, the way I came, because they may get on their radios and get on, these, hey, stop that guy, maybe he's part of the deal. And now after listening to you about what they did to you, am I ever glad
you did? Yeah.
Because I'm a licensed captain. I would have gone through more than you guys did.
Oh,
I would have had the Coast Guard crawling up my cavities, And I'm just going, God, that's probably one of the smartest things I ever did. And of course, they never asked me to identify myself. They couldn't see the TX numbers on my boat because it was a flat deck shallow sport, and the numbers are below sight, So I was lucky in that regard. Of course, being dark and everything, well, they can't see me, they facially.
Yeah, no.
And they weren't interested in me at the time,
right.
But they would have been later. Because I also thinking back on this, and one of the reasons why the Coast Guard didn't want to deal with you is they didn't want any witnesses out there. Because those nav lights were out.
That's right.
And the bridge lights were out.
That's right.
And they knew that. And that's part of their charter is to keep the navigation lights on. That's part of their deal.
Yeah.
And it's also very important
Yeah.
to have
Definitely.
those nav lights. And and I just went, okay, man, I'm out of here. So I'm also thinking, okay, this barge and tug are stuck into the causeway. I'm wondering, well, standard procedure would be to keep it in gear and keep it stationary there. Because the way the wind and the current were coming across there, and I've got to tell you, it was probably one of the worst currents I've ever seen there, and probably as high a wind as it gets.
And that's because you're in the water all the time.
Yes, and I recognize this. And after my career in the seismic business, running boats all over the world and rivers and stuff, I think back about the currents that night, and I understand how really bad it was. And I think it was part of their problem that night. And I was going, man, I've really got to get out of here. So I take off because I'm worried about this barge after these guys have, worked over these poor crew members. They're out of control of their vessel now, and it could just mousetrap me and my boat and the rest of that rig, smack it up against the causeway broadside. I'm going, oh, this could get worse.
Real quick.
And I mean really bad, because if that thing would have smacked up against that causeway and all of that current and wind
Pushed up against
the structure of those two barges and that tug, it could have really made a mess.
How far was that barge from the pillars, would you assume?
Well, the distance of two barges.
That's it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And it was still, in the position of contact, as far as I could tell. It was stuck in there.
Wow.
I'm sure they had to help, get help.
Do you remember seeing the tugboat from where y'all were at?
I remember seeing it immediately after we arrived at the gap, they were on the south side, and I could hear the motor, his diesel engine just, and I think what he was trying, he either threw it in reverse or was trying to gain control of it, because I could hear off in the distance that diesel engine, or you know, I don't know what it was, but it was just like a roaring sound coming from the tug itself.
I remember you saying something about the light. That's a good light they use. You know, their navigation spotlight. Those things are.
It was like a big
good.
old train light, man. Like it was just, it cut right through the darkness, and anywhere you pointed, it was just that beam of light. I remember seeing them on the empty barges running back and forth trying to do something, but they were literally helpless.
So hearing what he said, that they were in the vessel making coffee after the fact.
They were stuck to that bridge.
Yeah, so, they couldn't get it.
And standard procedure would be keep it in gear and keep you there, because I'm sure he understood that he could mouse trap over there and smack that thing sideways with the way the current of the wind was going.
Knock down 3 or 4 more
who
portions.
Knows?
Yeah,
who knows? Yeah. I doubt if it would have knocked any more down. But I've got a lot of theories on what happened to those guys, you know, why they ran into the thing.
So talk about that, because you were telling me that they have to crab walk a certain way.
Well, here's the deal. You know, they're coming from the port of Brownsville, and then they have to make one turn out of the channel going to Brownsville, and they turn into the Port Isabel part of the intercoastal, and then they have to make another hard right turn to get lined up for the swing bridge. And once they get that, once again, this current and this wind is as bad as it can be. It absolutely as bad as it can be. And they go through the swing bridge, and they've got to make this left turn where there's still now, I think, only one nav buoy to turn off of. Well, they make their turn and they get in the wind and this current, and you know, the guy's looking over there and, well, there's no lights.
Yeah.
Oh my God. So all he's got is his spotlight, and I could just see this guy, you know, looking for the hole, you know, looking for his entrance. And that, as long as a barge and the tugs are in the channel, the pressures of the water pretty much will keep them in there. You know, they're kind of in a ditch, you know. Think of it as a ditch. And as it turns, it opens into the bay a little more. And you've got a little depth on each side of the cut intercoastal itself. And I just think that bow of that thing got away from them, you know. Well, the first thing you've got to do is turn the opposite direction to try to push it out into the wind again, to crab up to the causeway, to move sideways, you know, and then they straighten out and go through it, because I've seen them do it forever, you know. Well, he didn't get control of that thing. And they have to power up, probably full power, 100, you know, like the space shuttle, power 110%, you know, all you got, and oars. And he tries to line up there, and it got away from him. Wow. And he's powered up, and he's moved. Well, you can't stop.
You can't stop.
Thanks from here to there. Yeah. There's no brakes.
There ain't no
boats,
jig brakes or anything.
Well, he missed, and he hit hard, you know.
Yeah, we were reading the transcripts where they said they was at full power, but they were, and then they reversed full power, but they were still going forward.
But they were still going forward, yeah, no matter how
And you got to remember, this current is behind them. This wind, the current and wind is quartering them from behind. And everything is pushing that direction. And there's very little you can do about it. Once you've made the mistake in a boat,
it's made.
The mistake has been made, and all you can do is hope for the best, because there's no reverse. You know, reverse is not going to help you a bit. And as a matter of fact, if he'd gone in reverse, he would have hit farther down. You know, that current wind would have just taken him farther over. You know, so it just, you know, I keep thinking that's a pretty stressful little run when you come off the Brownsville ship channel and you got to make 3 turns going through Port Isabel and go through that narrow swing bridge. That old swing bridge wasn't made for the equipment that they're running through, even currently. You know, they've never expanded it. Well, he's already, you know, in the pit and makes that turn, and he lost it. Just
Do you think
lost
it was
the deal.
mostly mainly due to bad captain, being not experienced, or do you think it was more the elements and the?
Oh, listen, those guys are good. You don't get on one of those tugboats because they go through terrible weather situations every day. Currents and going through small cuts and going through locks, and so those guys know how to operate their
So then
vessels.
the lack of the lights, the navigational lights.
Well, that's okay.
it was all a
You make
recipe
that
for
last
disaster.
turn. You're all focused on getting this rig through that swing bridge, and then you turn and you expect to see navigation lights, causeway light. You've got perimeter lighting. The ambient light off the causeway light, which is significant.
Definitely.
And the other thing too is when that wind's blowing really hard like that, you get a lot of sea spray off the chop, right? Well, in the daytime, you've got solar activity that burns a lot of that spray off, but at night it doesn't, and it stays suspended, and lights diffuse, going through that, and that's another element, that people don't really think about.
So it was the perfect scenario
It was
for
a mess.
tragedy. Yeah.
Yeah. I had sympathy for these guys. We got, what idiots, they ran into the bridge. Well, there was a lot of circumstances beyond their control, I think, It was just something. But anyway, I beat it out of there and ran towards the old causeway because I can run out there at night. I know where I'm going. And I didn't want to run back the other way, like I said, because I don't want to get involved with these guys. And I could just see myself cuffed and sitting in front of the Coast Guard. What were you doing out there?
That's
There weren't supposed to
exactly
be
what
boats
happened.
out there. What? And that's another thing that compelled me to speak about this. Because when you were talking about it, they're going, man, I finally did something right. I was so impressed with myself. I was like, wow, this was wonderful, man.
20 years later,
We're done.
Oh my God. And what
Podcast is done.
I thought about this a lot. I could have hung out there and helped these guys out, and of course my initial reaction was to run. Run away as fast
So was
as you
mine.
can now, especially after dealing with those guys. And I was seeing how they were not reacting calmly at all. I saw no calm in this law enforcement group, and maybe they were. I don't know. And I reiterate the fact that these guys had no idea what to do out in the water.
Nothing.
They're just standing there going. They want to do something, but and they want to react to something that's not happening.
That's not happening.
And I can see the frustration in them generally turns into anger, frustration then anger.
Yeah.
So that was something. But also when I came back around, I was retracing pretty much the same path that barge and tug had taken coming in the channel, because I had to come around there to get through the Port Isabel little low bridge. And the current in there was just absolutely river-like.
Wow.
I mean, it was moving.
Yeah.
And I remember slowing down and having to go through that low bridge in reverse to slow me down the current, because I didn't know if my back platform was going to hang under that bridge, because I've had that happen before. I have to get everybody in the back of the boat, sink it real quick
low, and then
to
dip
get
it under.
underneath there.
Wow.
So it was something. But I got back to the house and I put the boat up. Of course, the girl, she took off immediately. She was terrified, and I'm sitting there on that dock just reliving this, going, did that really happen, or did I just wake up and come out here and then this was the dream? Because it was pretty quick, I'm just going, no, that actually happened.
It happened, yeah.
I'm going, wow, I really can't tell anybody about this, because I don't want any part of that lawsuit, anything that's going to happen from this. I'm going, if there's lights underwater, they're dead people.
They're dead people.
And that truck that was stuck in that bridge landing area, I was going, that boy's done too, and how many more, who knows? I don't want to know. I'm going to get away from this.
I'm glad that you came on, because I have a couple of friends who are emergency responders, and some of them have taken a liking to listening to the podcast, but some of them have come to me and been like, man, you're really portraying everybody as just
horrible.
You know, like
I will back you up.
And the truth of the matter is that I'm just reliving.
And that's to say that night, that's what happened. It's not to say that these individuals are always like that.
I'm sure
no, they were not saying that at all. They're freaked out.
They were freaked out.
They didn't respond very well from what I saw.
The humanity in them took over. The EMS training and the any training they had as far as Border Patrol or Coast Guard or whatever, they weren't ready for it.
They don't have Marine training.
Yeah, they don't have.
They didn't have any boats there.
They didn't have anything.
Just like JP was saying that they don't. You have some type of training for like disasters, but not to that extent.
Yeah, nowhere near. Everybody, and you put it perfectly. The frustration led to anger, and if you were around, you were where they were going to focus that anger.
Yeah.
So you were right on the money by getting out of there. We should have just.
Now I really know.
We should have just turned them over. And we should have gone straight back. The trouble with me was that my boat and my trailer were on the island side.
Well, the thing that I feel so sorry for you about is these idiots on this Coast Guard boat, and I don't mind calling them idiots because they told you to do something that was absolutely insane. To go across that bay. And I know how rough it was. And you keep talking about this little 17-foot boat, and I know exactly what it was with, 7 people?
7 people.
Okay. Now, right then, those guys made a critical error in judgment, sending you across that bay, and that little boat basically overloaded.
Overloaded with a guy in a gurney.
And then you get over there, and they're telling you got to come back on the Coast Guard radio.
On the Coast Guard radio.
Okay. Again, they're getting you involved in something that's rescue, that's their...
It's their job.
It's their charter, man. That's what they're supposed to do. And I'm just thinking, listening to you going... Man, you guys should have just thrown those people up there and took off.
Took off, yeah.
And you saved them. That's all you need.
That's all we needed to do, yeah.
Well, then coming back and then having those guys drag you off that boat and take you to that Port Isabel police station and basically run you through a ringer. And that's just ridiculous.
They interrogated us. I mean, they didn't take us into custody. They didn't read us our Miranda rights. They didn't do any of that.
You weren't being arrested.
We weren't being arrested. You were hijacked. We were hijacked and being interrogated. Like it was just as uncomfortable and scary as being on the water, because now you're with these federal entities and they don't believe a word you're saying because all the boat docks were closed.
You're a criminal.
Yeah, we were criminals. Yeah, there's no such thing as innocent until proven guilty. You're guilty until proven innocent. And hindsight's 20/20 because we thought that we were going to be tended to. Had it not been for Pastor Hyde, they wouldn't even have offered us.
How old were you then?
I was 21 years old.
See, I remember me telling you earlier, you talked about if you felt stupid every once in a while.
Definitely.
Absolutely were. And it just, I can't believe that you guys got through that without capsizing your boat or further injuring. And see, that's another reason those Coast Guard guys didn't want to take those people, because then they're involved.
Exactly.
And one of the things that they do is, I'm thinking this is something that they do. If they come and rescue somebody, it's their responsibility, kind of like the police. Once you're in custody, you're responsible for them physically. And they didn't want to assume that responsibility. And they gave it back to you.
Literally.
Once you pulled up to them and communicated with them. Error, big error in judgment of that commander of that vessel. I mean, super bad. Yeah. I don't know where he is, but somebody needs to take him out and spank him, because that was a really bad call.
It really, really was. They literally just gave us the gurney, and their vessel's way bigger than ours. Dropped down the gurney to us. We strapped Renee into it and struggle to lift that dead weight, the gurney and everything up, feet first. So now the gash on his head, I remember as soon as we picked him up and he went upside down, this fold here just kind of opened and the shirt came off, and then it just started swelling. So they tell us, turn him around. So we turn him around, get him on the vessel,
They gave him back to you.
And the sons of bitches gave him back to me
Now,
and
see,
lowered him down and says, "Nuh-uh, we're not leaving where we're at."
That doesn't even work in my mind a little bit. I cannot believe they actually touched him and then gave him back to you.
Set him down.
Yeah.
Set him down.
And then gave him back to you.
And the captain came out and said, "No, sir, we're not taking that person back, and there's no way for us to give him any aid here. You need to take him back."
Wow.
And I'm looking at them. Bridget Goza literally was having to help us. She just flew off of a bridge. Having to help us because the dead weight, the weight of the gurney, the weight of the nest strapped in. I mean, it was just cumbersome.
Wow.
Mind you, we're dealing with the chop. We're dealing with
It's awful.
a vessel, and my boat is just smashing up.
It was as bad as it can be.
So
all the conditions, and I can't believe they gave him back to you.
they gave him back to me, and I'll never forget, because when they were, the weight of him and us holding him, when they started pushing it, it started separating the two boats. His gurney became a push rod, basically.
Wow.
And we're holding him. When the boat started separating, literally, I had Coast Guard guys holding Coast Guard guys because they were trying to lower him because I couldn't get the boat to get back up.
The gurney was attaching you there.
Yeah, the gurney was attaching.
That was your tow line.
That's exactly right. So they literally had to use him, and they said, hold on. And they pulled him, pulling my boat back to theirs, and then they just basically gave him to us as quick as they could and told us to get out of here.
Now, I've got to back up the Coast Guard in one regard. We don't know what they were ordered to do that night.
Sure.
We have no idea of what they were ordered to do, and we're probably never going to find anything about what they had to say about that.
I wouldn't doubt that.
But they may have been told to stay right there on station. They're thinking it's a terrorist attack. Okay, they need to be on station. They're armed and prepared to do something, and rescue was not on their mind.
Yeah, no.
Okay,
No.
that's the only thing I can say in response to how they reacted to the situation.
And I can agree to that because I myself...
We're back to scrambled eggs here.
Assuming
people don't know what to do.
Well, assuming that they were on alert for a terrorist attack, they didn't seem like they were on alert for a terrorist attack.
No, when they got there, I think that they quickly realized that they were in too big of a vessel to get near the bridge. They weren't going to put anybody in the water to go try to save anybody. At that point, I think their narrative was just to keep everybody else away from what could continue to happen.
Well, I've got another one for you. Okay, you guys are gone when I get there. Now, why did it? And I'm not real sure of the time frame of all of this when they commandeered that head boat and loaded it with those guys, and they came around. Why did they wait until I showed up there to get somebody over on that time? Wouldn't you think, under any reasonable activity, that they should have gone there first to see what was going on
immediately
on that tugboat?
Definitely.
I wondered about that for years, going, why did they wait so long to go over there?
I think it had to do with the fact that they didn't know what was waiting for them on that boat.
Well, I think it was also that they didn't want to try to maneuver over there to it because of the wind and the current.
Yeah, it was nasty.
It was terrible. It was a terrible
That
night.
V-hull boat that I had at the time, ski boat, I'm convinced that had a lot to do with because I'm not a captain. I collectively had maybe spent behind or in control of my own boat, or any boat for that matter, at this point, maybe 10, 12 hours.
I can't believe you survived. Overloaded and went across that part of the bay. That is the worst part of the bay.
I remember seeing the water just swirling.
It's awful.
That is insane, because you talked about this on the last episode about the post-traumatic stress. Like, you all went through that. Then you went through the stress of them detaining you. And then you went through the stress being in the courtroom where you had to see all these things that happened.
Yeah.
It's like it never stopped.
It never stopped. It was prolonged. And then we got tidbits of information in the courtrooms,
And this happened for all you guys, all four of you.
They wouldn't have wanted me in that courtroom.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah, because you were
They would not have
well
wanted
versed.
me in there.
Yeah, you were well
and see,
versed.
like I said, a lot of this stuff that I learned about winds and currents were when I got into that marine seismic industry, and they would send us to these horrible environments, all over the continent. And, I would think back every once in a while, to that night going, man, that's as bad a current,
As it was that night. You
Wind
use it as a
affecting
reference.
my boat right now, and these are bigger, more powerful boats I was running. And I'm just going, man, I got that little scooter boat in and out of there, and I didn't get killed, and went under that bridge that fell down and didn't get killed. And those guys didn't shoot me and got killed.
Yeah. And all of those were very present dangers.
Sure they
that
were.
there. They were very present. We got directly under the causeway when we were bringing the scuba gear guys or the scuba squad to go and look underwater.
They commandeered you.
They did.
You to do that.
Yeah, to do that.
See, if I'd have been there and they found out I was a captain, they would have had me doing it.
Well,
I'd go home. But
I get to the Coast Guard boat, and there's two frogmen up there yelling, screaming, arguing with the Coast Guard that their chief truck is in the water, and they want to go to.
that's the fire chief.
That's the fire chief.
Yeah.
I pull up next to them, and they start telling me to get out of here, get out of here. And the frogman said, will you take us to the accident? I said, yes, I will. And they jumped right on. We get there, and there's still a chunk about the size of this room, which is about a 13 by 14. It's a big chunk of concrete still hanging over.
Hanging on rebar.
Hanging on rebar. We get there, and immediately the two gentlemen who are going to go in to the water to go check things out move to the front of the boat, which brings my boat this
You got
way.
no control.
Got no
You got
control
no
over them.
control then.
I had my ass was up in the air,
Yeah.
so to
Yeah.
speak. That chunk starts scratching. And the guy tells me, back up, back up, back up. We back up, and as you know, when you back up on a boat, the ass end comes up.
Yeah.
And we were already up. Well, as soon as we backed up, that chunk fell not 8 feet in front of us.
Jeez.
And it created a suction almost. My boat was already, the ass was already up. So when that fell in front of us, when the stone broke the water, my boat followed it. When it broke the water, it popped my boat back up, and the frogman literally fell into the water.
Wow.
They had to crawl back
what
in.
I'm wondering is how in the world they didn't pay any attention to that current
Oh, yeah.
moving through there.
Oh, yeah.
How were they going to stay there?
I
How
had
in the world were they
no
going to
idea.
stay?
I
in
could not
position there?
get that boat to stay there. I mean, as soon as they jumped
can't
off, my
believe it.
ass was coming around this way, and I have to literally leave, come back, start on this side, because I knew I wanted to drift right in front of where I dropped them off.
I think Tony said it best. It was like when that little section when you take out the water from the sink.
It was
That's
like
how
that.
it was.
And instead
Well,
of
that's
just in
what was
one
happening
direction, it
behind the
was
barges.
several in every direction. Like there was just swirls everywhere. We could literally see, like Tony said, that boat, my boat, the hull went and hit one of the cars that was still with its rear end up tires.
Who almost ran over one of the frogmen? I remember somebody saying that they almost hit
It
him.
was one of the other boats that either had been commandeered by somebody or it was like a TxDOT boat. I remember they had 4 or 5 guys on one of those little skiff boats and the captain himself was basically yelling at people because when we would get close enough to them, it seemed like all of the authoritative figures would want to come to my side, to their side of the boat to be closest to me. And these little boats were just starting to, like they had no idea. It's like they thought they were walking on land. And you'd see that captain just start cussing at them. Get your bleep, 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 get over here. You need to balance the boat. And they all wanted to rush to the same side to talk to us, to tell us what to do, to get on
Exactly
to
what
us.
happened to me,
Yeah,
of course, these guys didn't want to listen. They're the authority.
They're the authorities. They're not used to somebody
I
telling
knew
them.
that they had no idea
What they were doing, yeah.
once they got on top of the water.
That's right.
They're great on the land, but not too good in the water.
I to this day believe that had I been on a fishing boat and not that Glastron boat, I think we would have capsized, man. I think that V-hull kept my boat rocking because there was one point where I had Rene on one side, Gustavo on the other side, 2 frogmen in the front. I'm sorry, not 2 frogmen. Leroy and Roland in the front, Tony in the back, and I'm sitting in the little captain's chair. and the chop was just so nasty that if you got in the wrong direction, it would just start tipping your boat. Like it was a.
And of course, it's trying to carry you away from the side.
Yeah, it's trying to carry you away from the side. That's right.
And doing a good job of it, too. Oh, yeah.
You couldn't, you could not gain control of it. You were in constant agility mode. You had to like just steer, you had to move, you had to reverse, it was never just going to stay where you wanted it to.
What was the maximum amount of people that you had on your boat at one point?
I think 7.
Wow.
And I imagine that boat's rated for 5.
Yeah, it was rated for 5, and we have 7 people.
I'm pretty sure, because I know what kind of boat it was.
Yeah, it was.
And I figured it was rated for 5.
It was rated for 5.
And they throw a Coast Guard guy on there to further. Of course, that may have saved you going across the bay.
I think it did, because at this point.
Did you know how to get to that Coast Guard station?
No.
Oh, well,
I didn't even know it existed, for that matter.
Yeah. Okay.
So if you can picture me on the right side of the boat, captain's chair, there's a windshield here, and it has this other windshield that kind of opens that gives you access to the front. Well, Chris, that Coast Guard dude, stood right in between that gap, holding on to both sides of the windshield. Had 2 people in front, 3 people in the back, he and I.
Well, he can't see where he's going
and
either.
he couldn't see where he was going. And we're coming.
I can assure you, he couldn't see.
We're coming at a full kind of steady chop, pop, 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 hitting the waves going towards this thing. And he grabs my steering wheel and just turns it. And as it turns, it whips everybody to one side. And I realized that I had almost hit one of these
utility poles there, I bet. Yeah. Because you can't see those either.
You couldn't see anything. It was as black as that curtain behind us.
Wow.
I mean, and he knew where everything was, man, because he had the spotlight. And instead of yelling, "Watch out," or this, he just grabbed it, and I'm holding on to dear life, and I felt the strength he had to use to dominate my grip.
Well, he's a Coast Guard guy. He knows what to do.
He knows what he was doing. And boy, I tell you, I don't know his last name. I wish we could find him. His name was Chris. And he was probably the thing that saved us the most, because had that not happened, had he not come onto the boat, I would have still tried to have stayed in the mess with injured people on my boat, not knowing where the Coast Guard was, what was a safe dock to go to. I knew nothing.
You probably knew that dock was there at Stockton's dock on the south side of the causeway there.
Yes.
You probably knew it was there, but how do I get in there?
And then I could see that. I had Bridget on the boat, and every time we got anywhere near the causeway, it was just sheer hysteria.
Wow.
Like yelling, screaming, trying to get off the boat, saying, "Don't take me near that bridge. Get away from the bridge." It was bad. It was bad. I fully understand what you're saying, and I wish I would have had the foresight or the perception to be like, I need to get out of here. Mm-hmm. I don't want to be here. I looked at my boat. It was just tore up. There was...
You didn't get any compensation for that, did you?
Not 1 cent.
That's the other thing I'm thinking out there, too.
Not 1
because
cent.
Because I know how this activity works with the Coast Guard.
Not 1 cent. And that boat was brand new. About 6 weeks later, I sold it at an auction for $4,000. I just bought it for $23,000. Couldn't get to it. Didn't want it. Didn't want to be in it. Didn't want to reupholster it. My wife would tell me, "Well, we could reupholster it, honey." Yeah. And I was like, "No, we can't.
We're going to get rid of this rascal.
We're going to get rid of that some bitch
bad dream right there." Yeah,
it really was. Like it went from something that was going to be a family, something to bring up and create good memories with, and it just took a turn for the exact opposite.
Yeah, I was worried for months and months about that. And I recently talked to 2 old friends of mine. I go, "Did I ever tell you about?" I asked several of my old friends, "Did I ever tell you about that?" Mm-hmm. And most of them, I don't know. But 2 of them, one of my customers and one of my friends here in McAllen, remember me telling him something about them, but I didn't go into any kind of details, because I didn't want any part of that business.
It was nasty. It got ugly.
Let me ask you this, Captain Steve. From the time you heard the collapse on the bridge, how long did it take you to get onto water?
It was soon enough that they hadn't boarded that tugboat yet. So it couldn't have been an hour, but it was probably more than 30 minutes because I had to walk out to the highway probably, I don't know, 5 or 8 minutes, and then run back. Probably took me longer to run than to walk, but and then drive down to the causeway, on my truck, and the guy's going, "Oh, there's been a terrorist attack. Causeway's down," Then I went back to my house, but I was immediately on that boat when I got back. It's probably 45 minutes I was there.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this, Robert. From the time you heard the crash and everything, and how long was that time frame from when you started rescuing to when you dropped them off? You actually dropped everybody off back at the.
From the first time we saw that the bridge was out, to the time we dropped them off and gave custody of these people to the EMS people, I'm going to say it was about an hour and a half.
Wow.
Yeah, it was about, because you got to remember, we got them onto our boat immediately, and they spent the majority of this time of us looking for other individuals.
With a bunch of kids.
With a bunch of kids.
Yeah, with a bunch of kids that had no idea what they were doing.
What they were doing.
Yeah.
None. Yeah, and we were all kids.
You guys were so lucky. I can't
all
believe you made it back and forth without capsizing.
There was a hole. There was and it's not a hole. It was a part of the front of my boat, right where the bow is, and it was dented and pushed in, and the fiberglass was just shredded there. There was this one pillar that stayed protruding out of the water, and when I reversed, the boat came up and it just clipped it, and it just scratched the shit out of my boat, and we all went and looked and said, "No, it's not broke, it's not broke." When I went to go pick up the boat, days after, once the ferries came in and stuff, and we got the boat on the trailer and we loaded it and we pulled it out of the water, you could stick your hand into that son of a bitch.
Damn.
Like, it was just pushed in so much. And I remember thinking, wow, after that happened, had there been a moment where we all went to the front again, because this happened right after the frogmen, when that piece fell and I had to go back and stuff. The boat would have filled up with water and we'd have been.
And I'm certain that boat didn't have bilge pump, did it?
No way.
Okay.
No way.
I tell you, I know that boat. It amazes me. I can't tell you how much that I am amazed that you guys didn't get capsized, sunk, something crashed into something.
Yep.
I can't believe it. You're lucky.
I had my. I don't know who it was. I don't know if it was Roland or Leroy or whatever, but I remember we were at the Lighthouse Assembly, or Assembly Lighthouse, the church, Pastor Hyde, and he said, one of them said, it almost was as if our boat was being held.
Wow.
And it was going wherever we needed to go, but I was looking at him and I was like, man, the only person holding that boat was me on that dang steering wheel. I mean, I almost got blisters. I was holding on so tight. It is a miracle in itself that what Captain Steve says is right. The danger and the chances of us capsizing.
You did everything unsafe that you could possibly do.
We did everything
got away
wrong.
with
Yeah,
it.
we did.
You'd never get your captain license.
Yeah, no, no.
And I think if there's any of those families that are listening, to this thing that made any money off of this, you guys need to buy Robert a boat. I mean, come on. It just, don't be so greedy. I know you guys did well.
Let me ask you this, Captain Steve. There's a part in the story where people either like, this is bullshit, or they're like, wow, this is talking about the woman in the water in the white blouse. You listened to the first complete episode. Mm-hmm. What do you think about that?
Oh, I absolutely believe the man. I've got no problem with it. I was going to tell you a story. I drowned surfing in Mexico. We were down there surfing, and I remember I pretty much drowned, and these guys from California pulled me in, pumped me up, and that day, my mom was in use. She was a school teacher, and she passed out in school. She said she got real wound up and just agitated and just passed out in her classroom.
Wow.
And I asked her, well, what day was that? And we determined that it was that same day at that same period of time.
Wow.
Did you hear that?
No, I trust me, I believe anything you
It
said about
sparked
that.
such a memory. It gave me goosebumps. I was still too young to attend one of the first times that George Strait came down here to the valley. Long time ago. And I remember being at home, and my mom and my dad were there. We're sitting, and my sisters had gone. They were both older than me, are older than me. And my mom stood up. And back then, late 80s and stuff, there was no cell phones. We didn't have text messaging. My mom stood right up. We were watching Three's Company. I'll never forget. I loved watching Three's Company because of the short shorts. And I was always watching with Dad.
Go figure.
So Mom stands up and says, something's wrong. We need to go to that concert. And my dad's looking at her, and I'm looking at watching Three's Company. I'm like, no, we ain't leaving. Well, they leave me there, and they take off. And sure enough, they come back later that evening with both of my sisters in tow, and they got there, and my mom was like, I couldn't breathe. I knew something was wrong. Well, my youngest sister, Hortensia, had gotten lost in the crowd.
Wow.
And I'll never comprehend, and I understand a little bit better now hearing you and what I witnessed that night on the causeway. Mothers do have some kind of connection to their children, and I don't think. Oh,
you better believe it.
Yeah, I think it transcends. It transcends death. It transcends anger and disappointment, and the love a mother has for their children or child is something that needs to be studied almost, because my mom was right on the money. They got there, they barged in, they're looking through hundreds of people. They find my older sister who had charge of my younger sister, and she's bawling, saying, I can't find Hortensia, I can't find. And my mom's just, I knew it.
And
Sure enough, my mom starts going, talking to people, and they found her backstage. They had a security guard had found her. She was a lot younger, and my mom said, let's go. I knew something was going on. So
there you go.
Yeah, and I that woman, Renee's mother, and I refer to her as that because I believe that. She's alive on all of our testimonies, on all of our statements. Everybody saw her. That's not something that we've been talking about for a little while.
Mass hallucination.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. It doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I wholeheartedly believe that we found him through her efforts, not through our own.
Well, that's why law enforcement people separate you when they get statements. Separate groups of people when they get statements.
Okay, there you go.
So you can't feed off the other person.
Off the other person.
That is exactly why they do.
And that's why we weren't put into jail cells. We were put into little broom closets. They didn't even want us where we could see one another, like complete isolation. Wow. I had one chair, one little room, and one guard. What the other three guys that were with me had, I couldn't tell you because I was never a part of that. I didn't see that. Sure enough, when our attorney came, they reunited all of us. We hopped into the Suburban with him and started making our way home. And the fatigue and the exhaustion and the trauma carried on into that Suburban and rode with us all the way home. Complete and utter silence until I'll never forget. I was sitting I was the bigger guy of everybody, so I was allowed to sit up front, and Frank's driving, and all of a sudden I can hear a real light snore. I turn around, and Tony and Leroy and Roland are dozing off, and they're asleep. And oddly enough, those snores were so welcome because it was the first time I realized that I was safe, that I wasn't going to jail, that the people we had.
Well, you did go to jail.
I wasn't going to jail forever, and I wasn't going to.
You didn't do anything wrong,
But it was. I remember hearing them snoring and thinking, "Okay, it's over. They're sleeping. They're resting." And I told Frank, "I'm gonna pass out." And Frank's driving, and he said, "I'm surprised you're still awake, Rob." and I just literally put my seat back, and we were gone.
Wow.
Unreal.
We were blessed that night, and I think that
You guys were so lucky.
we were lucky.
And
just-
to have an outside influence like the Coast Guard put you in harm's way like that, I can't imagine that, except for the fact that one guy was with you. But that's just unbelievable
Yeah,
that they sent you across that bay in an overloaded boat, and they had their safe vessel right there.
Yeah. And I am sure there had to be medical equipment
Oh, absolutely.
on that vessel to offer anything, even if it was just an IV to start hydrating somebody. They didn't want to deal with all that, and
They didn't want witnesses.
They didn't
buddy.
want
Let me
witnesses.
tell you something. They didn't want any part of you.
Mm-hmm.
You're lucky that guy Chris jumped onto your boat. There's another one of the lucky things.
Yeah.
Somebody was watching over you guys that he got on the boat with you.
Basically it went down this way. I said, I don't know. I'm looking up at them. Right here, past Pier 19, and I'm like, I don't know where that's
What
at, man.
are you talking about?
I can't see 12 feet in front of me once I leave any kind of glow of light that is near the bridge. You want me to go where? And this guy Chris just like literally grabs the side of the boat, flings his body off of it, hangs off of it, and tells me, get close, get close, get close. And I get close, and he just pushed himself, landed on my boat, and said, I'll take you.
Jesus.
And I have his Coast Guard guy, buddy, or friend saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? Get up here, get up here. And he was like, no, man, these guys are going to get lost.
No, these guys are doing a lot of
Yeah,
crazy
man, it was
stuff.
crazy.
And he knew that guy, whoever was in command, sent y'all across that bay. He's going, dang, that guy was thinking to himself, they aren't going to make it.
They aren't going to make it. I
They
wouldn't
have no
doubt it.
idea where they're going.
Yeah, I would
These
not
are
have
children,
doubted.
you know, in the boat.
We were kids.
Oh,
All of us. Like, it was ridiculous. I'm grateful that we're here now sharing it and bringing it to light. But the truth of the matter is if I could go back, and I know hundreds of people probably say this, and avoid that night, I would. Hey, you know what, Judy, I'm going to fishing. No, you're not. If I would have just said, okay, no, I'm not, I think I'd be a little bit happier today, because to live with the fact that you survived something like that, because we could have gone.
you would have been statistics. I can't believe it. I can't believe you guys made it.
We made it.
Yeah.
So now
I can't believe it.
we're here telling the story, and I can't help but to think that I wish it wasn't my story sometimes, and I'm sure some of the survivors and I know the people who lost loved ones feel the same way. You know?
I wanted away from any part of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wasn't out on the street going, "Hey man, guess what I did?" You know,
Yeah.
the last thing I wanted to do.
Yeah, you'd have been drug in.
Oh, I'd have been in that
Yeah,
courtroom.
yeah.
Oh God.
And this is the great thing about the podcast platform, is what I keep trying to tell everybody, is that this is the most authentic thing that you'll probably hear.
Definitely.
We were the only people out there.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
know, I mean, did you ever hear anything about how they got to that barge? I mean, how they got to the tugboat?
I had never heard that story, and I was there.
That's why I couldn't believe they hadn't already gotten somebody
on
over
the
there.
boat. Yeah.
Why didn't the Coast Guard go around over there?
Yeah, they
I mean,
were
it's
just-
already a wreck. Well, you know, if they didn't want to put their boat up against them, well, you know, getting it dinged or something.
It's nobody is prepped for that. I don't care how much training you go through. Maybe the Marines, maybe the Navy, you know, people, but the Coast Guard stationed there that night had very little to offer in terms of rescue, in terms of aiding anybody, or even
They dropped the ball in my book,
Yeah,
buddy.
or even good
I
advice.
promise.
You
No,
know?
no, nothing.
Good advice would have
They
been.
gave you bad advice.
Yeah, get out of here, man. Go dock at the at piers at the fishing pier and get out of the water.
Yeah.
Like
That's what they should have told you.
Jim's Fishing Pier,
Yeah.
right next to Pirates Landing, it's a stone throw away from where we were at. And these guys sent me under the bridge and all the way to the Coast Guard station on the island side. The most logical thing would have been, you see that pier right there? Tie your boat to it and get the hell out of the water and get these people to safety on Port Isabel side. But they sent me way, way, way far away from
I
anything.
still can't believe it.
And it's just, and even now I drive over the
outstanding
beach.
error.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
was tremendous. So I drive by Jim's, the fishing pier, and I see where they parked that pirate boat, and they have the
That wasn't there then.
Yeah, that wasn't there.
It was a totally different pier, as a matter of fact.
Correct.
And it was going at a different angle.
And it was going in a different angle.
There was a lot more room between the pier and the causeway.
And the
at that
causeway,
time.
definitely. But there was this one little area where you could go and get off and get into the
They
into
had
the,
a landing area.
a little landing area. Not what it is today, by no means, but more than sufficient for us to have gotten there, gotten people to safety, gotten them on land. It didn't occur to me, didn't occur to the Coast Guard, didn't occur to anybody who was there. They literally sent us through harm's way, under the bridge, in the middle of the dark, in the middle of the night, with injured people on my boat, and sent me against the current, against the chop, to go drop them off somewhere where they weren't going to receive any help. It was just a cluster of people yelling.
Cluster's good.
Yeah.
And like I said, when I pulled up against that headboat, there was 8 different people telling me to do 12 different things.
12 different things.
And I was just going, man, you guys, you haven't got it down at all.
At all.
But I think back after I got into the oil field and did all this safety training, and I mean a lot of it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean cold water survival. I mean insane training for horrible environments. And I think back on that, it was even more radical that like I said, I was smart enough to get the heck out of there. Man, what a great call that was.
It was.
I'm really impressed.
Hindsight's 2020, man. I think my first initial reaction was fear, paralyzing fear. Like, I'm a big guy, and I pretty much go toe to toe with whoever when I need to defend myself. But rushing into burning buildings, jumping in front of
Pretty
bullets.
much what you did.
Yeah, that's pretty much what we did.
Yeah.
Had it not been for Roland, y'all would have never got out.
Roland, man, that son of a bitch.
What do you think about that? Like, looking back now, like,
I don't know.
What the hell was going through his head? What do you think?
I think that something came over Roland, and it was so profound, this heroic energy, that it exuded, and it transferred to me, and it transferred to Leroy, and as soon as he look at that, I remember feeling it, man. I was like, what the hell? I'm not going over there, man. They're shooting, and I thought they were shooting. I thought that what could have taken out the bridge? And he said, Robert, there could be children in the water right now, Robert. Like, we need to go. And I look up at him, and I could feel it. He had just transferred all of that heroic energy that he was receiving from somewhere, and he gave a little bit to everybody on the boat. And it was enough for me to say, all right, but you have to, as soon as you're in danger, we're leaving. I'm not going home without you, without Leroy.
I've got a question for you. Okay, you guys are sitting there,
Mm-hmm.
and did you hear that barge hit the thing? I mean, did you realize what was going on,
No.
or it was just something happening and
It was
not
just
being a
something
water
happened.
person or marine oriented
I had
person?
never seen a barge in the Laguna Madre.
Well,
Not once.
that's impressive.
Once in my life I had no idea that there was a deep channel that allowed for big. Like, I had no nautical knowledge. I
Unbelievable.
was always only a passenger on a boat. Only ever a passenger on a boat.
How deep is that channel through that little area?
They maintain 12 feet, but right there it's pretty deep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably 30 feet through that
Okay.
area. And it's deeper as you go north for about, 2 or 3 miles. And but coming out of that swing bridge, it's pretty shallow in that part of the bay. They have to maintain that part of the ditch, to keep it open.
I literally didn't know what the channel markers were. You have to stay if you're a certain type of boat, and here, I didn't know about sandbars, and I didn't. I mean, just look at the boat I bought.
Yeah.
The boat I bought was not for, or I maintain it's still not for, shallow fishing, and that's what we were going to do.
Fascinating, buddy.
Yeah, it really
fascinating,
is. As the years have gone by, and as I have come, I've informed myself a little bit more about that evening, the boat that I was in, and the current. I think to this day, it's the strongest rip current in the history of South Padre Island that night.
Oh, it was pouring. It
was bad.
I'm going to assure you, all the weather conditions were as bad as they can be.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
And the air, just saturated. It was almost like fog.
you were wet.
Yeah.
Whether it was off the splash or off the mist that was just lingering there, you were wet. You were just soaking
And
wet.
the expression "dark and night." Well, they could have taken it from right then.
Oh,
I can't
God.
tell you how dark
Yeah.
it was. Unbelievable.
It was so dark that if you took a lighter and sparked it, it lit up the whole boat.
And I'm sitting there, looking at the bridge. Well, it looks fine to me, And I, knowing what was going on out there, I'm looking at it going, man, I don't see anything wrong with it until I got over there and saw all those cars in the water.
Yeah.
And then I looked up, like I said, it was skylighted.
There was skylight.
Their sky.
Where there should have been.
Hey, let me ask you this, Captain Steve. Do you remember seeing lights in the water from the vehicles?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. Oh, I went right by them,
Wow.
And that truck stuck on the landing, that piling. I'm just going, wow.
For the better.
I only remember one set of car lights, though. And I'm sure that once they hit the water, they started moving with the current, I'm pretty sure
Yeah.
that's what
Oh,
happened.
definitely. Yeah. We got to see. I don't have a vivid memory of the car lights being on underwater. I
Yes, I saw them.
I remember seeing, and again, I'm imagining you on your boat. You're standing, and captaining your boat. In this ski boat, I'm sitting this deep into so for me to see the water next to me, I'd have to basically stand up. So I don't remember, but everybody else on the boat remembers it. I remember seeing lights kind of flickering and fading in and out. I don't know if as they were getting deeper in the water or like you said.
I remember the
current.
headlights being on one of them.
And see, so-
And I think it went through the water and stuck in the underwater part of right between two of the V pilings, had stuck in there. That's the only reason that it would still be there. Otherwise, the current would have
pulled it over. That's right. It was a horrendous night, and the confusion saturated everybody. There was not one clear-minded, composed individual that night.
I will back you up on that after your story and seeing the
appreciate
law
that, Captain.
enforcement guys I saw. Of all the guys that should have been, pretty calm and realize what they were doing. And I just did when we got to that tugboat, and I saw that guy roughing up that long-haired guy in the galley going, these guys, they're looking bloodthirsty
Yes,
to me, buddy.
that's exactly the
these guys
feeling.
are not responding normally, and I've got to get out of here because I could be next, They turn that anger onto me, and I'm just going, or their confusion or whatever you want to call it.
That is hitting the nail squarely on the head. They were just
I think you said it,
angry.
crazed.
Yeah, they were crazed, man. They were angry at what they were seeing.
They wanted something, they wanted something that wasn't there and was not going to be there.
And it was never going to be
It was
there.
never going to be there.
Jeez. Well, before we finish off the podcast, I just want to ask if you have anything else that you maybe remember.
Creepy.
You got a long drive back too, so you're gonna be thinking this is gonna be going through your head on the way back.
No. I finished with you guys. Man. I got everything out I needed to get out, and I wanted to meet this guy, Robert,
appreciate
real
that.
bad. Listen to this story of his, and just I want to tell you, man, you guys were really being stupid out there, man.
Thank you.
And then being led down that path, farther down into the hole,
Yeah, no, they
unbelievable.
Yeah.
And then what they did to you guys afterwards, basically, you were taken in and interrogated. You weren't questioned.
No.
You were interrogated.
Yeah.
And that's going into military, and it's just and being kids, I remember you saying you guys were in your 20s or something. And then, after between the time I heard that podcast and now, just going, man, when I was 20 years old, I'd have got the heck out of there immediately.
Believe me, I wanted
when
to.
I was 48 years old, I wanted to get the heck out. Because if those guys wouldn't have pointed the guns at me, I would have left. When they told me to come over there, I go, no, man, I don't want anything to do with you guys.
Yeah.
But,
One last question before we finish off the podcast. How do you feel about the story that we're telling now after 20 years?
I think it's awesome, and the fact that you've read the transcripts of what they said, and there's no transcripts available from the tug guys, right?
Yes, we
Yes.
have
Oh,
those.
there are.
Those are coming.
Those are coming.
I wonder if that kid in the galley remembered me pulling
I
up there
wonder.
in my boat.
Yeah, I wonder if that's
Because he
him.
saw me.
yeah.
He looked at me, you
Yeah.
know. And I just, the way that officer was treating him, it was, I just, like I said many times.
It's
I
like
just
if they had
think,
done it deliberate.
This is time to get out of here, man. These guys are nuts, you know.
Wow. Well, we're glad you enjoyed it. We're
I
happy
did
that
enjoy it, yeah.
that you. I'm glad
I
that you
speak
were
to you
there.
guys too, man.
Yeah. I'm glad that you were there because it's a testament to the chaos that I experienced, and a lot of people don't believe it sometimes.
I can understand a lot of things that happened and explain to you how bad it was. You know, you may not even know
I
how
didn't.
bad things
I
were,
don't,
you know. And I can assure you it was. And it just, that you made it was fascinating. I can't believe you guys made it.
One last thing, Robert. From where we started with the first podcast up to now, what are your feelings like still continuing the story?
It's a journey for me. There are 20-year-old questions that are being satisfied. There are perspectives that I'm getting to. I'm getting full visions of what you went through.
That's what I wanted to give you, was some perspective.
Good, because I
from
need
a
it.
Marine outside, you know, observation of the whole thing. And I want to hear some information about those tug guys.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, we're going
What they
to
think
come
happened.
out to them. Yeah.
That's the thing that I most want to know, because I'm thinking of all this stuff, you know, being an operator, you know, how in the world, you know, did this, what was going on? What were they thinking? You know, was it the outside influences of the weather? Was it the lack of navigation gear? Or
Yeah, we got the
lights?
transcripts from the lawyer actually talking to Fowler, which was the captain of that boat.
He had never.
I never saw him.
He had never. He had never captained a boat that was pushing 4 barges. It had only been 1 or 2 for him. So it was his first.
He was underpowered
Yeah.
from what I understood.
So he was, and he maintained that the vessel was not seaworthy whatsoever, and that so we've been, and I say we, and I use the term loosely. It's been mostly Josh has been reading through these and skimming through them, and
It's a lot.
It's a lot, yeah, it's a lot, and we're trying to maybe do a kind of like not a reenactment, but I'd play the attorney, and maybe Josh could play the Captain Fowler, and basically run through the questions, the Q&A of what the attorneys were asking him, what his responses were, and I think we found a lot of stuff to be really interesting. So,
Absolutely.
Circling back to your question, it's therapeutic for me. It brings me hearing Captain Steve tell me how incredibly lucky we were. It brings value to me in the sense that I didn't realize that. To me, it was a scary scenario. I knew that there was danger lurking everywhere, but I never felt that danger in the moment. I just
you didn't know.
Yeah, we didn't know.
You didn't know.
It's like
Ignorance is great sometimes.
yeah, it's like
you know,
being
it'll
next
save
to
you.
a bush of poison ivy and you don't recognize it. You know, you got away unscathed, but it was there.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what you're bringing to light to me now. So, to answer your question, I'm loving it. I'm loving hearing it. I'm enjoying that it's bringing me new value to my future, because now I have a little bit better appreciation for not only what I did, but what we managed to survive
What you
ourselves.
got away
What
with.
we got away with,
Yeah.
you know, and that's a feather in our hat, and it gives us, it gives me at least the motivation to do better and to kind of preserve what I got going here in a positive way.
What you got left, the time
What
you
we
got left.
yeah,
See,
because
I'm looking at short time, you know.
yeah. So to hear
I'm
that,
enjoying things, you know.
to hear that is it's warming. You know, it's a good thing.
Yeah, well, the great thing about this is that people will get to look back at this on YouTube at any point in the next 20 years,
Sure.
because this is literally the most detailed documentation of
Definitely
this
is.
event.
I can assure you that no one is going to come to you and go, those 2 guys didn't know what they were talking about.
Yeah.
I can assure you that is not going to happen, because these law enforcement guys, they're not going to come to you and go, oh, we were very professional.
Yeah, no,
We acted,
never.
down the line what we were trained to do. And,
Those of them
Go for
that were there have the same recollection that we have. Maybe they haven't come to terms with the amount of anger and fear they were experiencing that night that led to some incompetence, but they know.
It wasn't incompetence on their part. It was lack of training and knowing what to do. And in a Marine situation, I had no idea. I mean, if it had been on the land, those guys would have been in there and they'd have done their thing. And
Jaws of Life.
John Wayne, And I've never been a John Wayne. I'm more of a James Bond.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Around,
Me too.
Yeah.
Roger Moore or
well,
what is it?
the
Sean
only
Connery.
one, Connery is the only one.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that being said, don't forget to subscribe. I believe I think like 80% of the people that are watching the series are not subscribed. So subscribe to it. That way you'll get to see these episodes as they pop up.
Get the updates, yeah.
And absolutely. So once again, guys, we'll see y'all later.
Captain Steve, appreciate
it.
Thank you, my friend. It was a pleasure.
Pleasure to meet you too, buddy.
The Joshua Moroles Podcast.